Have you ever listened carefully to what someone said and still felt that something was missing? Have you ever walked away from a conversation with a strange feeling that the words sounded kind, but the intention behind them felt different? Most people believe communication is about words. They think if they pay attention to what is being said, they will understand the truth. But power has never lived inside words alone. Power lives in hidden intentions. It lives in what people want, what they fear, and what they are trying to gain from you. The smartest people in history understood this simple fact. Human beings rarely say exactly what they mean. They say what protects them. They say what makes them look good. They say what helps them get what they want without revealing their true position. This is why many people spend years being confused by others. They listen to sentences while ignoring motives. They focus on language while missing strategy. And because of that, they become easy to influence, easy to manipulate, and easy to control. Machiavelli understood that human nature does not change. People still seek advantage. They still hide weakness. They still protect their interests. The only thing that changes is the way they speak. When a man tells you something, there are often two conversations happening at the same time. One conversation is spoken aloud. The other remains hidden beneath the surface. The first is for your ears. The second is for his benefit. If you learn to recognize this difference, you will start seeing people in a completely new way. You will stop judging statements by their sound and start judging them by their purpose. Suddenly, conversations that once seemed confusing become clear. Promises reveal hidden conditions. Compliments reveal hidden desires. Excuses reveal hidden fears. And what once looked like honesty begins to look like strategy. Today, we are going to uncover what he says versus what he really means. Not because every man is dishonest, but because every person has interests they protect. Once you understand the hidden language beneath ordinary words, you will see the game that most people never notice. When a man says, "I am just busy right now," most people hear a simple explanation. They assume circumstances are preventing him from giving attention. Sometimes that is true, but in many situations, the deeper meaning is very different. What he often means is, "You are not important enough to move higher on my list of priorities." This sounds harsh, but reality is often harsh. Every person makes time for what feels valuable. A man who spends hours on entertainment, social media, or personal interests while claiming he has no time is not revealing a scheduling problem. He is revealing a priority structure. Machiavelli would remind us that actions always expose the truth that words try to soften. People prefer explanations that protect their image. Saying "I am busy" sounds better than saying "this is not important enough to me therefore." Wise people examine behavior before accepting explanations. When he says, "I need some space," many people immediately assume he is trying to solve personal problems. Sometimes he is, but often the hidden message is, "I want distance," without accepting responsibility for creating it. Notice how carefully the phrase is designed. It sounds reasonable. It sounds mature. It sounds temporary. Yet it often allows someone to pull away while avoiding direct confrontation. Human beings dislike uncomfortable truths. They prefer language that reduces resistance. By asking for space, a person can create separation while preserving the appearance of good intentions. The lesson is not to become suspicious of everyone. The lesson is to recognize that words often protect emotions more than they reveal reality. When he says, "I am not ready yet," the statement may sound like caution. It may sound thoughtful and responsible. Yet in many cases, what he truly means is, "I do not feel enough certainty to invest fully. This difference matters." People often imagine readiness as something that suddenly arrives. In reality, readiness is usually connected to confidence, desire, and perceived benefit. A person who strongly wants something often becomes ready much faster than expected. Machiavelli understood that desire has a powerful effect on decision-making. When motivation is high, obstacles appear smaller. When motivation is low, even small obstacles appear enormous. Therefore, the hidden meaning behind hesitation is often not fear of action, but lack of commitment to the outcome. When he says, I don't want any drama, listen carefully. This phrase is one of the most interesting examples of strategic communication. On the surface, it sounds peaceful. It sounds like a request for calm and stability. But many times the hidden meaning is, I do not want accountability for the consequences of my actions. People frequently use the word drama to describe situations where others react negatively to something they have done. By labeling conflict as drama, they shift attention away from their behavior and place responsibility on the emotional response of others. This is a subtle but powerful move. It changes perception without changing reality. The wise observer pays attention not only to the complaint, but also to what created the complaint in the first place. When he says, trust me, the first thing a wise person does is become more observant, not less. Genuine trust is rarely built through requests. It is built through evidence. People who deserve trust usually allow their actions to speak for them. But those who feel uncertain about how they are perceived often try to strengthen confidence through words alone. What he may really mean is, I need you to believe me before you have enough proof. Machiavelli understood that appearances can be powerful tools. Many people attempt to create the image of reliability before they have earned it. This does not automatically mean deception is present. It simply means that smart people never replace observation with hope. They watch patterns, consistency, and behavior over time because truth leaves footprints that promises cannot hide. When he says, I was only joking, the hidden message is often far more revealing than the joke itself. Many people use humor as a safe vehicle for truth. A comment that would seem offensive or risky if spoken seriously suddenly becomes acceptable when wrapped inside laughter. What he may really mean is, I meant what I said, but I want an escape route if you react badly. This is why certain jokes feel uncomfortable. Part of you senses that something real is hiding beneath the humor. Human beings often test boundaries this way. They reveal small pieces of their true thoughts while maintaining plausible denial. If the response is positive, they move forward. If the response is negative, they retreat behind the shield of humor. Understanding this pattern allows you to separate entertainment from intention. When he says, you are overthinking it, he may not be trying to help you relax. In many situations, what he really means is, stop looking so closely. Details make people uncomfortable when those details expose contradictions. A person who benefits from your lack of attention will often encourage simplicity. They want conclusions without investigation. They want acceptance without questions. Machiavelli knew that power frequently depends on controlling perception. The less people examine a situation, the easier it becomes to guide their beliefs. This does not mean every accusation of overthinking is manipulation. Sometimes people truly do create unnecessary problems in their minds. The key is to ask whether deeper examination reveals facts or merely creates anxiety. If important facts continue appearing, then careful thinking is not the problem. When he says, I never asked you to do that, what he often means is, I enjoyed the benefits, but I do not want responsibility for the outcome. Human nature contains a strong desire to enjoy rewards while avoiding costs. This desire appears everywhere. People encourage effort indirectly, accept support happily, and then distance themselves when accountability arrives. The statement may be technically true. Perhaps no direct request was made. Yet influence does not always operate through direct orders. Expectations, hints, encouragement, and emotional pressure can motivate action just as effectively. Wise people recognize the difference between literal truth and practical reality. Someone may avoid responsibility through language, while remaining deeply connected to the situation itself. When he says, I just want what's best for you, pay attention to whose interests are actually being served. Sometimes this statement comes from genuine care, but many times the hidden meaning is, I want you to choose the option that benefits me, and I would like you to believe it benefits you too. This is one of the oldest forms of influence. People rarely persuade others by openly admitting self-interest. Instead, they present personal desires as universal wisdom. Machiavelli observed that successful influence often works by aligning another person's choices with your own objectives. The The strategy becomes even stronger when the target believes the decision was entirely their own. Therefore, whenever advice is given, examine outcomes. Who gains the most if the advice is followed? The answer often reveals more than the advice itself. When he says, "You have changed," the statement may sound like an observation, but it often contains a hidden complaint. What he may really mean is, "You no longer behave in a way that benefits me." Change becomes threatening when it disrupts expectations. A person who once accepted poor treatment may suddenly set boundaries. A person who once remained silent may begin speaking confidently. A person who once followed directions may start making independent decisions. These changes often create resistance. People become comfortable with predictable versions of others. When those versions disappear, frustration appears. The accusation of change is not always about who you have become. Sometimes it is about the loss of control someone previously enjoyed. When he says, "I don't care, be cautious," truly indifferent people rarely announce their indifference. They simply move on. The need to declare a lack of concern often suggests the opposite. What he may really mean is, "I care more than I want you to know." Pride frequently hides behind emotional distance. Human beings fear vulnerability because vulnerability creates risk. Admitting concern gives others power. Admitting disappointment reveals expectations. Admitting attachment exposes weakness. Therefore, many people choose the safer path. They pretend not to care, while secretly monitoring every outcome. Machiavelli understood that appearances and reality often travel in opposite directions. The louder someone insists they are unaffected, the more carefully you should examine the possibility that they are deeply affected. When he says, "I'm being honest," do not focus on the announcement. Focus on the content. Honesty does not become more truthful because it is advertised. In fact, people often emphasize honesty when they feel their message may be questioned. What he may really mean is, "I want credibility before I provide evidence." This does not mean the statement is false. It means the label itself proves nothing. The world is full of people who describe themselves as honest, loyal, kind, and trustworthy, yet character is not measured through self-description. Character is measured through repeated behavior. Wise individuals understand this distinction. They listen respectfully, but they reserve judgment until actions confirm the words. When he says, "It's not a big deal," ask yourself why he felt the need to mention it. Often the hidden meaning is, "This is a big deal, but I do not want to discuss the consequences." Minimization is one of the most common strategies people use when facing uncomfortable situations. By reducing the perceived importance of a problem, they reduce pressure, criticism, and accountability. But reality does not become smaller because language becomes softer. A serious issue remains serious regardless of how gently it is described. The intelligent observer pays attention to impact rather than labels. Outcomes reveal importance far better than explanations ever can. When he says, "I didn't mean it like that," what he often means is, "I did not expect that reaction." There is an important difference. Many people are less concerned with what they said than with the consequences that follow. When words create conflict, they quickly begin rewriting the story. They adjust meanings, soften intentions, and explain away statements that moments earlier seemed very clear. Machiavelli understood that people naturally protect themselves when their position becomes uncomfortable. This is why wise individuals pay attention to first reactions. The truth often appears before strategy has time to organize a defense. Once consequences arrive, explanations become more polished and less reliable. When he says, "I support you," observe what happens when support becomes costly. Words are cheap. Real support demands sacrifice. It requires time, effort, risk, and sometimes personal loss. What he may really mean is, "I support you as long as it remains convenient." Human beings enjoy appearing loyal because loyalty is respected. But true loyalty reveals itself only under pressure. Anyone can stand beside success. The real test comes during failure, criticism, and difficulty. When circumstances become uncomfortable, many supporters quietly disappear. This is why Machiavelli valued results over appearances. He knew that difficult situations expose realities that comfortable situations keep hidden. When he says, "I want peace," the deeper meaning may not always be harmony. Sometimes what he really means is, "I want an outcome that favors me without resistance." Peace sounds noble. Nobody wants to appear against peace. Yet people often use peaceful language to discourage opposition. They frame disagreement as conflict and compliance as maturity. This creates a psychological advantage. Suddenly, anyone who challenges them appears unreasonable. The wise observer understands that peace without fairness is often just control wearing a pleasant mask. Real peace requires balance. It cannot survive when one side carries all the costs, while the other enjoys all the benefits. When he says, "I had no choice," examine the situation carefully. Most people have choices. The real issue is that they dislike the alternatives. What he often means is, "I chose the option that benefited me." Most human beings frequently remove responsibility from their decisions by pretending circumstances forced them into action. This protects their image and reduces criticism. Yet choice remains choice, even when the options are difficult. Machiavelli believed that power begins with accepting reality. The moment people stop hiding behind excuses, they gain a clearer understanding of themselves and others. Responsibility may feel uncomfortable, but it is far more honest than pretending freedom never existed. When he says, "I deserve better," the statement may contain a hidden assumption. What he often means is, "I want more than I am currently receiving." Desire itself is not wrong. Everyone wants improvement. The question is whether the expectation matches reality. Many people focus intensely on what they deserve, while paying little attention to what they contribute. This creates a dangerous imbalance. They become experts at measuring rewards, but beginners at measuring value. Machiavelli understood that the world responds less to entitlement and more to leverage. People receive better outcomes when they increase their value, strengthen their position, and improve their ability to negotiate. Expectations alone rarely change reality. When he says, "I am different from other people," be cautious. Truly exceptional individuals rarely spend much time announcing their uniqueness. What he may really mean is, "I want special treatment before I have earned special trust." This pattern appears constantly. People separate themselves from negative groups, negative stereotypes, and negative expectations because they want immediate credibility. But credibility is not granted through claims. It is earned through consistency. The wisest approach is simple. Do not reject someone because they make the claim. Do not believe them because they make the claim. Watch what they do. Time reveals authenticity far better than self-promotion ever can. When he says, "Everything is fine," the hidden meaning can sometimes be the complete opposite. Human beings often conceal problems because problems create vulnerability. Admitting disappointment, fear, stress, or uncertainty requires courage. Therefore, many people choose a safer response. They create a calm surface while a storm exists underneath. This does not mean every claim that things are fine is false. It means that emotional reality is often more complex than verbal reality. The strongest observers learn to read behavior, energy, consistency, and patterns. Words tell one story. Actions frequently tell another. And this brings us to one of Machiavelli's most important lessons. Never judge people only by what they say. Listen carefully, but watch even more carefully. Words are useful. They reveal intentions, desires, fears, and strategies. Yet words alone are incomplete. The real truth appears where language meets action. Every promise eventually meets a decision. Every claim eventually meets reality. Every intention eventually produces behavior. That is where understanding begins. The people who are easiest to manipulate are those who believe every sentence at face value. They assume everyone communicates with complete honesty and complete transparency. But the people who understand human nature know something different. They know that every conversation contains visible meanings and hidden meanings. They know that self-interest often hides behind kindness, that fear often hides behind confidence, and that weakness often hides behind pride. This knowledge does not make you cynical. It makes you aware. Awareness is not about distrusting everyone. It is about seeing clearly. The moment you begin looking beyond words, your understanding of people changes forever. You stop being surprised by behavior. You stop being confused by contradictions. You stop chasing explanations and start recognizing patterns. And once you recognize patterns, you gain something extremely valuable. Clarity. Clarity protects you from manipulation. Clarity improves your decisions. Clarity helps you understand the true nature of the people around you. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep lessons on power, human psychology, influence, strategy, and the timeless wisdom of Machiavelli, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next lesson. Share this video with someone who needs to understand the hidden meaning behind people's words. And remember, the smartest person in the room is not always the one who speaks the most. It is often the one who understands what others are really saying. Until next time, stay observant, stay strategic, and keep learning.